Hey everyone, Eric Watson here, freelance writer, player of games, writer, virtual recorder videos, and tabletop role-playing aficionado. Welcome to This Week in D&D, where I break down the news surrounding Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition and the tabletop RPG industry. This is the week of May 29th. I was not here last week because it was the last week of school, and we had a bunch of crazy stuff going on last week, but this week we are now in summer, so I'm feeling very refreshed. I have had multiple long rests, even with the gritty realism rules of real life. I've had a refreshing long rest. All of my hit die have been replenished, and there is some news that we can talk about, especially since I didn't come on here last week to talk about any news as well. On the, of course, the other side, I've got kids running around the house, including one that is currently playing on the piano. I don't know if you can hear that now. The first thing we're going to talk about is the Book of Dragons. This was a new, what I can tell, like art book. It's not a rule book or even a settings book or anything. It's just a fun book, I guess. And I don't think it's even published by Wizards of the Coast. DK Books has announced a new guidebook, they're calling it, featuring the dragons of Dungeons and Dragons. This is called literally just D&D: The Book of Dragons. Book is written by Michael Whitwer. Will be released this August. 224-page book that just focuses on the lore of dragons. And judging by the pictures, I'm guessing that this reminds me of like those. I had a bunch of these as a kid, but like the dinosaur books, like the big like atlases, maybe that had all this. I don't know, just like breakdowns of the and stats and information, like very sciencey about dinosaurs. I don't know how sciencey you can get about dragons necessarily, but it's a neat idea for sure. It looks cool. I don't. It's just kind of for funsies, I guess. People like dragons. It looks like it's a lot of the art maybe from the 2024 book, or at least I don't know if it's directly from that, or at least inspired by that. So the artwork looks really, really cool. Sapphire dragons looks awesome. This is one of those things that just kind of inspires you, I guess. The price is a little high for the hardcover. I don't mean books are definitely expensive these days, like everything else. $40 makes me feel like it's supposed to be a big coffee table book, but I'm not sure if that's the. I don't know what the physical dimensions of the book are. So again, when I'm picturing those big like atlases, you picture these big, like a coffee table book is just one that's not, it's just a giant book, right? Like physically. So maybe it's like that. Okay, it does say 9 to 15, 16 by 11 to 7/8. I don't know how big that fucking is. That sounds not that big. But 224 pages is like an actual solid, like that's the size of, all these other D&D books. So Michael Whitwer has done Dungeons and Dragons Art and Arcana. It's a New York Times best-selling author. As well as Empire of Imagination, Gary Gygax, and the Birth of Dungeons and Dragons. So done like a lot of other kind of D&D focused book. Lavishly illustrated with newly commissioned artworks and penned from the perspectives of Tiamat and Bahamut, the mighty dragon gods themselves. Why do they always feel the need to do this? I feel like it's getting a little silly now with every single, like, in-universe book has to be authored by somebody in that universe. Like, it was fun when they did it with, like, Xanathar's back then and Tasha's, I guess. But now, like, every single book that comes out, like guidebook or source book, has to be like from Volo or from Mordenkainen or somebody in the universe. Like, do we have to do this every time? The definitive guide unveils the rich lore, diverse types, and legendary characters of the Dragon Realm. Essential for every D&D fan, it offers unparalleled insights into these iconic creatures that for decades have been the heart and soul of the game. Elevate your campaigns and deepen your knowledge. Discover why the Book of Dragons is a must-have for every adventurer's collection. Are we interested? I don't know. If you're gonna have a D&D guidebook, dragons is probably the safe the safe way to go. But the little this is on nworld.org, has some kind of preview pages of it, which again very much looks like those old kind of dinosaur books I used to have. Really stunning artwork though. Obviously, if you're into the D&D art, which I mean most of us should be, it looks really cool. So, Book of Dragons, looking pretty spiffy, but it's not a guidebook or rulebook. It obviously would be associated with the what's the first anthology book we're getting? Dragon Delves, I think is the name of it. Coming this summer, coming very soon actually. It's almost June. So certainly they're going hard with the dragons, which again is probably the safest the safest thing to do with any kind of new D&D content. All right, on to our next news topic, which actually this is a really quick one. This is the SRD got updated to the new 2024 rules, which they're calling it SRD 5.2. So does that mean we are almost like colloquially referring to D&D 2024 as D&D 5.2? In which case, what was 5.1? I don't know. we really need to nail this down because it bugs the shit out of me. I've been saying D&D 2024, which obviously already feels outdated since that was last year. So the new conversion is just an easy kind of, well, it's a PDF you can click on from D&D Beyond, but it offers a summation of all of the changes between the 2014 rule set and the 2024 rule set, specifically anything like the definitions or the way things are ordered somewhere else. Like some of it's just minor bookkeeping stuff, like now certain words are capitalized and others are not or something, just to make sure it's all official in there. On the one hand, it also offers a nice little summary of some of the changes from the new 2020. So as I was looking through this, I was like, okay, this is almost like a little, like, I don't know, Cliff's Notes version of the new rule sets if you just needed to glance around and see what some of the differences were. So like actions have been revised to include the official like influence action, magic action, search action, study action, utilize, which was formerly use an object action. Like just having all of this information on one little PDF, which I could zoom in a little bit. I don't know why I'm so zoomed out. On one PDF is actually kind of useful. The fact that D20 test now includes basically anything you're rolling a D20 for, which is ability checks, attack rolls, and saving throws. Heroic inspiration just replaces inspiration. The way that the unconscious creatures now have 1 hit point and not 0, which is kind of useful because there was always that awkward thing where it's like, oh, we have to revive this person just to interrogate them. The way character creation has changed with the fact that races are now species and backgrounds now include the origin feat. You know, all of these new. Again, you probably already know all this information, but I think it's actually helpful just to go back and kind of review all this stuff. Underwater combat, for example, is an easy thing to miss. Now, instead of it being certain weapons that don't have disadvantage, I'm trying to remember because we just played a nautical campaign, so I should be very familiar with the way underwater combat works. Now it's just any weapon that deals piercing damage avoids the disadvantage. So a lot of that stuff is kind of cleaned up a little bit. You can't fix yourself from being prone if your speed is 0. And there's a bunch of obviously all the classes got something, right? Something changed within the classes. This doesn't attempt to actually break down every single different like change. If you notice, it basically just summarizes them as bullet points in here. So it's like, hey, we're just all of these things changed, which is basically listing all of the class's features, right? Like pretty much everything about every class pretty much changed, and it doesn't actually go into those details, but it just gives you kind of a bullet point list of everything changed, which for the class one is not that useful because mainly it's just like, yeah, all the classes changed. Like so many things changed or got revised. If there's a single thing that they can talk about, or they just say revise. Okay, starting equipment has changed. The way the names have changed. So Warrior of the Open Hand was previously named Way of the Open Hand. So they'll even mention like nomenclature and stuff that like just, hey, we're changing like the official names of things, or again, the order of things. I think it mentions feats and spells in here as well. Weapon mastery is obviously a new thing. Backgrounds that were newly added or revised. It's, how many pages is this thing? It's probably about 15, 20 pages. 15 pages. Okay. Yeah, and you can see all the things that are now, let's see, game objects are more rigorously capitalized. So now we capitalize things like subclasses, temporary hit points, stable, because that's an official condition, I guess, ritual, passive perception. These are all officially capitalization. So again, good to know stuff like that. New animals, basically a lot of dinosaurs, and the hippo. Shout out to the hippopotamus. Apparently a new monster. I did not catch that. Following monsters are omitted. Use the following equivalents. Dwergar, use spy. Oh, that's interesting. I don't know if I've seen this breakdown before, actually. So obviously there's a whole thing about new monsters. Like the Kobold Warrior was the Kobold, Merfolk Skirmisher was the Merfolk, because the 2024 monster book kind of helped give us more variants. So there's not just like a single one. Yeah, Tough is formerly Thug, which I think is just a wording thing. But this one's interesting, actually. Monsters that were omitted from the new rule book, now you just say use this new rule book. So I guess there are no Dwergar. Is that true? Pause for a moment where I grab my monster manual book. Now I'm curious. Is there no Dwergar in this book? I just turned to the D's. Draco Lich, Drider, Dryad. Yeah. I guess there's no Dwergar. Okay. So in other words, it's saying just use more generic. Although Dwergar had a cool stat block. Dwergar were awesome. Hang on, is this true? I love the Dwergar stat block. What? Because they had like they could like embiggen themselves and they could turn invisible. They were amazing. See, now this is why I pointed this out as an important news post, because like I'm looking at this going, oh wow, I missed some stuff that helpfully summarizes everything here. So what is the equivalent? Spy. So this also says what to use instead of that stat block. So does the spy... Now the spy surely isn't as cool as the Dwergar. Spy is on page 295. Now they got me pulling the book out. You know, shit's serious now. So the spy, yeah, they're just a rogue. They've got cunning action. And you've got the spy master, which has the smoke bomb, which is kind of fun. But that's not the same as a Dwergar. Come on. Not even close. All right, so I bet you're saving that for the stupid Sword Coast book then they've got planned, no doubt, or Forgotten Realm, whatever they're doing. The other examples they give are the Elf Drow, which now says to use the Priest Acolyte, the Deep Gnome, or the classic word that Eric can never pronounce, Zvifferneblin. Now it just says to use the Scout. I don't remember if Deep Gnome had anything special about them. Lizard Folk, now it says to use the Scout. That one makes sense, because they didn't have anything special. And then the Orc says to use Tough. Which Orc, of course, is now a player species. Which I think this is something that a lot of people didn't realize when they looked at the book. They're like, oh no, there's no Orcs in here. It's like, well, technically that is true. But it's also because Orcs didn't really have anything special to begin with, necessarily. I mean, it was always a lame stat block, frankly. I think they just had some kind of thing where they could like move up to half their speed. Which the Tough is not, doesn't quite have that. The Tough just has pack tactics. The Tough was basically just was the old thug. They've got mace, crossbow, and pack tactics. All right. So I'm not sure if some of these are... The Dwergar I'm especially disappointed in. That's interesting that they think that the Spy replaces the Dwergar. In the Monster Manual 24, there is a list of substitute stats blocks, all to do with Drow, Dwergar, and Orc. Okay. I probably knew that at one point and then forgot about it. So it does list all that stuff specifically. It's like, here's the omitted creatures and here's what you can use. But the Dwergar, I would definitely take offense at, because that one was, as somebody who's a lot of Dwergar in Realm of the Frost Maiden, right? That was like our full first act thing. So I don't know, I'm pretty disappointed about that. Also, I realize my lighting is all kinds of weird and crazy now. I got a new crab tank that has basically I've had to change my whole desk setup. I literally had to buy a monitor that I could go vertical. So I have a vertical monitor on one side, and then I've got my ultra wide, and then just a regular monitor on the left side. So I'm still working on how to get all this shit in the right spot. So my lighting might be a little bit strange. But that's available on D&D Beyond. It's the SRD 5.2. Just kind of I just think it's a useful way to summarize all the different changes and rules. It doesn't get into the nitty gritty of it, but it kind of provides a nice little bullet point difference between all three of the books that I can tell: Monster Manual, Dungeon Master's Guide, and the Player's Handbook. Probably the biggest news of This week is the Unearthed Arcana for the Psion. Now, you all may have to correct me on this. I believe we've seen Unearthed Arcana Psion before at some point in the last couple years, but I also believe it never actually made it into an official book. Is that right? Because I don't ever remember seeing a full like, if anything, I don't. Because the Psion, yeah, as a full class, I'm pretty sure we have never seen that. No, I know we haven't seen that because the Artificer was the only one we saw. But I think we did see it before in an Unearthed Arcana at some point. And obviously it exists in older editions of Dungeons and Dragons. So the Psion, and I don't remember, don't even ask me to try to compare this to what the other Unearthed Arcana was, because I generally didn't cover Unearthed Arcanas, if at all, I think, in the previous 5th edition. So I don't recall what this was. I think it had a similar deal where it had, or maybe I did. Maybe somebody's gonna be like, Eric, you did this like 3 years ago. I'll be like, well, fuck. Maybe I did. But I remember looking at this and seeing like the psionic energy die and being like not too crazy about this class, thinking it wasn't that exciting. And I've only done a very cursory like pass through on this new Unearthed Arcana. So I don't know what this means. In other words, I think we've seen our Unearthed Arcana of the Psion previously, and it didn't actually make it to print anywhere. It'll be curious to see if this one does make it to print, because we did see the Artificer, right, like a few months ago, hit Unearthed Arcana, and now it's going to be part of the Eberron Forge the Artificer book, so it's going to make it into an official book, like it did in the previous edition when it arrived in, was it Tasha's that we actually got the Artificer in? I'm trying to remember now. Let's see. There wasn't a 5e UA with all Psion subclasses, and a couple made it in. Interesting. So is that where we got like the Psi Warrior from the Fighter, and then we got the, what is the other one? I wonder if the Aberrant Mind might count for the Sorcerer. Rogue obviously has the Psylocke, what do you call it? Telekinetic knife hand things. So yeah, the psionic powers are reflected in other subclasses, but this is a full-on new class with 4 subclasses: Metamorph, Psi-Warper, Psykinetic, and Telepath. The first new class since the Artificer. That is what they're declaring. Psion weaves magic through the power of their mind. So they're basically just a full spellcaster. They're a full spellcaster who has a dice that they can use to manipulate some of their abilities, which is basically very similar to the Sorcerer, I believe, right? Because Sorcerer's got their... Sorcerer's got sorcery points, I guess, so it is different. So with Sorcerer, use your sorcery points and then expend those points to just activate your... sorcery. I've never actually played a sorcerer. Sorcery feats, at least not in 5th edition. And so the Psion, instead, they have a dice similar to like a Bardic Inspiration or a Monk's martial arts die, or really it's actually similar to a Battle Master's maneuvers is probably the closest comparison, because you expend the die to activate extra features, and then the die result also matters for getting that extra feature. So it's actually, that's probably the closest comparison. It uses the Fighter Battle Master which is such a good system, that's why they use it for other things, on top of being a full spellcaster. So the Psion, yeah, it talks about the history of the psionics, which has been in there since 91. In the 5th edition, psychic powers are synonymous with magic. Of course they are. The magic of the mind flavors, not mind flayers, mind flavors numerous spells, monsters, and subclasses, like the Psi Warrior Fighter and the Aberrant Sorcerer, literally calls those out. In this edition, the Psion is a spellcaster who interfaces with magic and spellcasting similarly to other classes in the game. So they didn't try to invent a whole new like resource system, basically. They just said, hey, you're just a full spellcaster, you still have spell slots and all of that, but on top of that, you can manipulate and activate your abilities using this psionic energy dice. The UA provides a Psion with unique twist to spellcasting using psionic energy dice and the psionic spellcasting feature, carving out of space to make the Psion stand out from a spellcasting peer. So you are intelligence, obviously. D6 puts you at the same level as a sorcerer and a wizard. You have no armor, simple weapons. You are a pure squishy spellcaster through and through. One of the few pure squishy spellcasters. You can see by the spell slots per level. We go all the way to 9th level spellcasting. I believe the progression is the exact same as the full spellcasters. They do. That's probably a good thing where they don't really change that progression much. It's like all the full spellcasters, druid, cleric, wizard, sorcerer, all those folks get the same kind of spell slots per level deal. The thing that changes, your cantrips are not as much as a wizard though. You've only got like 2 in the early levels. Prepared spells, I think, is close to all the others who prepare spells, which seems pretty solidly linear. The thing is the energy die and the number of dice. So here's where kind of the comparison to the Bardic Inspiration or the Martial Arts die comes into play. And to some extent, the Battle Master Maneuvers, I guess, also change. But your die starts off as a D6 and eventually climbs all the way up to a D12 every couple levels. Basically, every tier of play, it ascends to another die. And you also get additional die to play with at the same kind of rate. So at the early levels, the tier 1, you have a D6 and you have 4 of them. And then when you get to tier 2 at level 5, you have a D8 and you have 6 of them. And then eventually it gets a little bit off where you get 8 die at level 9. And then at level 11, you get a D10, but you still have 8 die. So it doesn't quite do it 1-to-1, but it gives you that extra little abilities. And your spell list is very much like, in fact, we're going to skip ahead to the spells. This is also what helps define the Psion to me, is you are a pure spellcaster who has like no or very little direct damage spells, right? If you think of like the sorcerer and to some extent the wizard as being just pure destructive magic in combat, the wizard can basically do it all. But the sorcerer, I feel like, is especially somebody who is pigeonholed into like kind of your main like DPS spellcaster. The Psion is the opposite of that. You are the main crowd controlling spellcaster. Or like utility spellcaster, like kind of outside of combat. You have very little, like you have, in fact, is there any evocation magic whatsoever? Telekinetic fling is considered evocation. Shatter, which that makes sense. You could picture Shatter as being this kind of concussive explosive force using the telekinetic. But as you can see by the spell list here, it's all like transmutation, enchantment, illusion, divination. You get stuff like phantasmal force, mirror image, hold person. Just a lot of the stuff you can picture as being, telekinetic powers. Dissonant Whispers is a good one. Detect Magic. I mean, they're all really good spells. It's just very little direct damage spells. So that's something to know going into the Psion. But you can see there's still plenty of great spells, even if you're not doing direct damage. Although I imagine most people would take Shatter, so they have that ability. Although that is an AoE. I think you don't get it until you get like that one like Lance ability. What is that? That's later on though, isn't it? Yeah, the Psychic Lance. It's not till 4th level. Wow, so there might not be a single damaging spell on level 3. Is that true? Actually, maybe we get some new ones. Telekinetic Crush might be. I mean, Hypnotic Pattern, Fly, Fear, Dispel Magic. These are all top tier spells, no question. Ooh, that'd be a good thing to do, is to rank all the spells. That would be a fucking long video. Insane. So I won't go over the whole progression, and I don't know exactly what's changed from the other Psion. We do get modes, which I don't remember at level 2. So obviously at level 1, we get spellcasting right off the bat. We do have our invisible mage hand. And then we get a couple of psionic powers. We have one that lets us do our telepathy, another one that lets us kind of push people around, which I think was a feat in like Tasha's or something, wasn't it? It was the one that Raymond used in Ryan, like telekinetic thrust or something. I don't remember this one though, which is level 2, you get psionic modes. You can enter an attack mode or a defense mode. Attack mode allows you to expend your die to, let's see, when you roll damage for a spell, you can expend 1 psionic die to re-roll a number of damage dice up to your intelligence modifier and use the new rolls. You also ignore psychic resistance. And then you can enter defensive mode where you have resistance to psychic damage. And if you fail any of the mental saves, you can then take a reaction to expend a die and add the number to the saving throw. You can use this feature twice and regain all uses when you finish a long rest. So not as maybe quite as powerful as like a sorcerer's thing that they got, where they can enter this mode where they get like pluses and things, because you do have to expend your precious die. Which, by the way, you only get, I think, 1 dice back on a short rest. Let's see, where does it tell that feature? I know I saw that somewhere. Psionic Discipline. Nope, that's not it. Or is it? No, that's not it. Psionic Power. You regain 1 expended psionic energy die when you finish a short rest, and all of them when you finish a long rest. So the nice thing is, every short rest you gain 1 back. There's no limit to that, but you only get 1 back on a short rest. So that tells me you should only really be using 1 or maybe 2 per encounter. So it's different than a monk's martial arts die where you can be fueling your abilities all the time. Now, you are still a full spellcaster. You still have all your spells available, right? So it's not like you have to use your psionic die for all the things, but it just allows you to use your extra features. I guess that's more balanced with like a wizard's arcane recovery with spell slots, or the sorcerer's ability. I believe they can get back some sorcery points on a short rest, which they could then change those into spell slots. So you've got your modes. You get your subclass level 3. You also have psionic discipline options. I think you get these at level 2. You can choose 2 of these. And these are just extra features that basically determine how you're spending your die. So everybody gets the psionic modes. And I believe, can you also spend it with the telekinetic propel? Yeah, so that's your base. Every scion, you can use it for your propel, which is a bonus action, where you can force them to make a strength save and then push them number of feet equal to number of die rolled. The nice thing is you only expend the die if they fail the saving throw. So it gives you a cool ability to like shove them around, which is something that psionics should do. I think that's every superhero that has that power can just shove people around with their mind. Or you can use your telepathic connection, which I don't think that spends a dice. And then there's your modes. So your modes do spend a die on attack mode or defense mode. And then your psionic discipline options allow you to choose other things that you can use. So kind of like your battle master maneuvers, basically. There's like a dozen of these, and a lot of them allow you to specialize in certain schools of magic. So abjuration or divination is one of them, which allows you to change the casting time to a bonus action. Necromancy or transmutation to gain a number of temporary hit points equal to the roll. They're all kind of different, but they allow you to specialize in different things. Some of them are really lame, though. It's like when you take the search action, you can expend a psionic energy die to add the number roll to the ability check. How often are we honestly taking the search action? I guess if you're outside of combat, you could take the search action and gain like additional 2. But even then, it's like, why is that? Does it have to be? Do we really have to make that check? It just doesn't seem worth it compared to some of those, which would come off a lot more often. There's one for influence, search, and study as well. But I don't know how much we're taking those during combat versus some of the other ones, which are like, yeah, if you're casting the spell, do this, roll this die, and you can add some damage or add some of your attack roll or whatever else. In fact, that's probably the best one. Inherent aim. You can spend an energy die and add the number rolled to an attack roll, to your attack roll. You can't use it on anybody else, potentially turning the miss into a hit. And if this causes the attack to hit, the die is expended. Another great thing is if you use your thing and it doesn't work, you don't actually expend it, which is a really cool feature. That's something that I think bards have to like get higher level for, or maybe it's a subclass bard feature to where they don't expend the bardic inspiration if it doesn't actually help them. So that's pretty nice. And then later on, psionic restoration. When you finish a short rest, you can get more back. I have to sneeze. So I have to do this like once per stream. It's so, ugh. All right, I'm good. But no more than a number equal to half your number of dice. And then when you roll initiative, you can expend 1 of your hit point dice and regain expended use of psionic modes. So you can get some of your stuff back a little bit better. Subclasses I haven't actually looked too long at, but the Metamorph is just insane. It doesn't even feel like a psionic at that point. It feels like you're playing a completely different class where you can just warp your own fleshy body. I don't know if it's even T-1000 style, but it literally sounds like some kind of like horror video game villain, like a Resident Evil creature. A blade made of bone springs from your forearm or extends from your hand. That's fucking Robert Patrick T-1000. Deals 1d8 piercing damage on a hit. You have advantage on the attack roll you make with the blade of at least one of your allies within 5 feet. You get pack tactics for some reason. Flesh maul. Your fist and form coalesce into a hardened mass of flesh and bone. You can do 1d10 bludgeoning damage. and give them disadvantage on strength and constitution saving throws, or a viscera launcher. Your hand and form transform into a crossbow made of muscle and sinew that fires bolts of bile that does acid damage. Your bile is acidic. You're a xenomorph. Wow. And then whenever you attack with this weapon, you can use your intelligence modifier for the attack and damage rolls instead of using strength or dex, which is awesome and sounds really cool, but keep in mind, we're still a very squishy D6 hit point, no armor class. I'm not seeing if anything gives us like a more defensive capability, so it's a neat idea, but like we're still our Psion class. It cause the weapon to deal psychic damage, which is kind of cool. We get some pretty cool spells though: Alter Self, Cure Wounds, Lesser Restoration, Haste, Polymorph. Extended Limbs, your reach increases by 5 feet, your speed increases by 5 feet. We do get extra attack at level 6, so we get a lot of cool offensive, like melee capabilities, and obviously the theme is really cool. I love the idea of just transforming our the body into these fleshy, nasty pieces and just going to town on people. But I am worried about the defensive capabilities of this class. We've got no armor and we've got very few hit points, so we're inviting some swift retribution from our DMs. Quicken Healing is pretty cool. Cast Cure Wounds as a bonus action. Basically turn into Healing Word, although we do have to spend 2 Psionic Energy die, jeez. But we get to add that to the healing. Mutable Form, when you use Extend Limbs, duration increases to 10 minutes, gain one of the following benefits of your choice. There we go. So now we finally get some defensive bonuses at level 10 if we've survived that long, my goodness. Psywarper focuses on teleportation stuff, which I don't ever thought was really the realm of psionics. I never thought of like teleportation as psionics. Those are always very different abilities to me, but this allows you to like have a better shatter, have free misty step. There's a lot of good teleportation spells that can focus on in here. Some kind of a teleporting swap as a reaction, which is pretty neat. So it's a neat idea, but not necessarily one I would think of as being a psionic. And then the other two just feel like the classic Psion going in 2 similar but different like advanced class directions, which is one of them is the telekinetic forces. So you're doing more like physical attacks. You're flying around. It says literally at level 6 when your attack mode is active, you can have fly speed of 60 feet and you can hover and add your intelligence modifier to a damage roll. That is really cool. You just enter like, again, how you picture, somebody like Jean Grey or somebody like just in battle flying around using their cool telekinetic abilities, which is awesome. Or are you more of a Professor X and you want to go into the telepathic side of things, which gives you, I don't even know how many more spells I could give you because all of your spells were already very telepathic. Detect Thoughts is free, I think. Telepathy increases to 10 feet. And you can connect people together. When you enter defense mode, you can add a 1d4 to all your saving throws and extend the benefit to a telepathically connected creature. That's pretty nifty. Add an intelligence modifier to the damage you deal with any Psion cantrip. This one's honestly a little bit lamer than the telekinetic one. The flying around as part of your attack mode seems a lot more fun than having a slightly better group defense mode. All of these, I think, get overtaken by how cool the Shaper is, or the Metamorph, even though I don't know how, like I said, balanced it is with just getting that. But I'm somebody who also played a melee Warlock who also suffered from not the great hit point. Although I did multi-class the Paladin, so that's something to be said. That helped my armor and survivability quite a bit back when I played that character. And it covers a bunch of spells and stuff. So yeah, that is the Psion Unearthed Arcana, available right now as a PDF on D&D Beyond. Everybody can check it out and see. I don't know if anybody here interested in the Psion or has any cool ideas, or is like, oh yay, I've always wanted to try this character. On the one hand, I wish they did play around with letting the Psion have just straight up their own like resource system versus just being a pure spellcaster. But on the other hand, I get the philosophy of 5th edition, which has served them very well in the last decade, has been keep it simple. And the way to keep it the most simple is to let's just use what we already have, which is just spell slots, spell casting. Let them be a pure spellcaster, and instead we'll let them kind of slightly manipulate or boost their abilities. I mean, it makes them a little bit less unique compared to just another spellcaster, frankly. but probably easier to play. I think what helps make them a little bit more unique with their flavoring is going to be these subclasses. And of the four, really only the Metamorph feels especially crazy. If I were to rank them, I'd probably put the Metamorph as the first, then the Telekinetic, because I just love the idea of flying around, blasting people. And then probably the other two later on is just being more psychic stuff. So that is the Psion. Psion or Psionicist didn't become its own class until 2E. Okay. I don't know. Did they ever become an official class in 4th edition? I don't know how many like extra books we got in 4th edition. I feel like 4th edition was so short-lived. Metamorph should have armor spell. And let's see. Metamorph. We really don't get any new spell. Well, we get Stone Skin at 7th level. So that's nice, but that's not till 7th level. I don't know if they get any, the Psion. I mean, I'm sure they get Mage Armor. Yeah, as a basic first level spell. We do have Mage Armor as a basic first level spell. But defensive abilities beyond that, Mirror Image, but again, they kind of jacked with Mirror Image in the new edition. Granted, it was very powerful before. All right, moving on to what is probably the biggest news in tabletop RPG, and something that actually came out last week, but I didn't do it this week in D&D, so I'm going to cover it this week, which is Daggerheart released. This is the big Critical Role produced and created original tabletop RPG. This is not D&D, but it is a fantasy RPG that's obviously pretty inspired by D&D, and it's, I don't know how well it's doing sales-wise or anything, or what their projections were. I'll be curious to see if any of you folks are interested in Daggerheart or have checked it out. I respect and love the hell out of the Critical Role folks. I don't keep up with that show or production or anything. But the fact that they've just risen to like a meteoric fame and have done so with like a lot of grace and business acumen and like all of that is very impressive. So this is their big project, and it is, I imagine, very hard to break into the tabletop RPG sphere. It's still a very niche hobby, despite it growing, exponentially in the last decade. with Critical Role being a big reason for that, by the way. And Dungeons and Dragons has a 50-year head start. It is just basically synonymous, right, with tabletop role playing. So it's very, very hard to break in, especially if you're like another, swords and sorcery, dragons, fantasy world that you're just going to be compared to D&D all the time. So how do you get out of that? Well, I think having the Critical Role backing probably helps a bunch. It is available on DriveThruRPG. It is also available on Roll20 via the Demiplane thing, which I talked about in a different This Week in D&D, where they've integrated with. So Demiplane is basically like D&D Beyond for a bunch of other RPGs that has like a database where you have your own account. You can put all your your source books and your characters and stuff in there, and then there's an integration between that and Roll20. So I don't think you actually purchase Daggerheart directly on Roll20. I believe you get it through the Demiplane system, but then it does it works in Roll20. I haven't seen the actual specifics of that, but that does mean that's something I could certainly cover and review on the channel if folks are interested in looking at Daggerheart. I know I'm probably interested in checking it out just to see what they do differently. Basically, I'm always interested, for example, in video games that are like fantasy, tactical games that are obviously clearly inspired by D&D, but still do their own rule system and how they do it, like Divinity Original Sin or Pillars of Eternity and all these kind of games, like ones that either didn't have access to or didn't necessarily want to use the direct D&D license. Like, what did they do to change? In other words, what is their opinion of improving upon that system? Darrington Press's community gaming license includes Daggerheart. Trying to read and see. I don't know if there's really like an official press release for this, but this is on Darrington Press, darringtonpress.com. It's available on Critical Role shops, friendly local game stores, Amazon, Barnes & Noble, and available digitally on Demiplane and DriveThruRPG. Let's see. There's a Daggerheart system reference document on daggerheart.com. It's daggerheart.org. Is it Daggerheart? Okay. Yeah, the website I'm looking at right now is daggerheart.org. Let's see. They've got live streams and stuff together. And they've got a Daggerheart how-to series, Get Your Sheet Together. So this is something I did watch and I thought would be kind of fun to watch with all of you. Then we've, of course, got the beloved Matthew Mercer on here. Hopefully it's not licensed music. I don't think it is. I did get dinged, by the way, whenever I did my Crooked Moon watch of their Kickstarter video, and apparently that music was actually licensed, so I had to mute that section of my stream so that I weren't in violation of anything. So hopefully this doesn't use any music so we can listen to it together. But this is the How to Play Daggerheart Get Your Sheet Together from Critical Role's YouTube.
Hello and welcome to the first episode of Get Your Sheet Together, a video series we've made to assist you on your journey into Daggerheart. Today we're going to talk about the game's core mechanics. We'll teach you what you need to know to jump into your first game of Daggerheart as a player. So, let's get started.
It's not quite a 2d20. I think it's a 2d12 system.
Whenever you do something in the narrative that could have consequences, such as leaping across a chasm, deceiving a bounty hunter, casting a complicated spell, or attacking an adversary, you'll make an action roll. Now this is the main type of roll you'll be making in Daggerheart. When you do, you'll use a set of dice called your duality dice. These are a pair of d12s of different colors, with one representing hope and the other representing fear. You roll both dice and add their results together, along with any modifiers you have from your traits and experiences. Then, you look at which duality die rolled higher. In this case, I rolled a 15, and my hope die is higher than my fear die, meaning I rolled a 15 with hope. Now, if my fear die had been higher, I would have rolled a 15 with fear instead. When you roll with hope, even if you fail at the action you were attempting, things don't go as badly as they could, and you gain a hope, which is a resource you can spend throughout the game to help allies or power cool abilities.
Yeah, your class
a success with hope is a fantastic thing. Now, when you roll with fear, the GM gains a fear, and your character may run into some complications that come with the action you are attempting, even if you succeed. A failure with fear is an ominous portent indeed, for the GM gets a fear and the consequences of failure arise. And rolling doubles on any number is a critical success. Double ones, double 12s, and everything in between. On a critical success, you succeed spectacularly, and you'll also gain a hope and clear stress. There are also a few other types of rolls you should know about in Daggerheart. Damage rolls occur when you succeed on an attack against your opponent, whether weapon or spell. Add all of your damage dice together along with any modifiers and deal that much damage to your target. Reaction rolls are made as a response or a reaction to dangerous events as dictated by the GM. Often when an adversary attack or environmental danger occurs that relies more on your ability to shrug it off, you might make a reaction roll. These work just like action rolls, but they don't generate any hope or fear.
All of that is just...
So, now that you have all this hope, what do you do with it? Well, hope can be used in many ways that support you and your party. You can help an ally, utilize an experience, initiate a tag team role, or activate your class's hope feature. We'll talk more about these options in upcoming videos. Your evasion, which can be found on the top left of your character sheet, is what you use to determine your ability to avoid attacks and other unwanted effects. Your GM will be rolling against this number when adversaries make attacks against you. What happens when they're successful? You're probably marking hit points. These represent the physical injuries your character endures when they're hit by an adversary or hurt themselves traversing difficult environments. The number of hit points you mark is determined by your damage thresholds. They can be found right above hit points on your character sheet. Now, damage you take may be minor, major, or severe, causing you to mark 1, 2, or 3 hit points respectively. So let's say your character has a major threshold of 8 and a severe threshold of 16. If they take 9 damage, that would be considered major damage, which marks 2 hit points. Thresholds are meets it beats it, so 8 damage would still be major, but 7 or below would be minor. There's no math here. All you have to do is compare the numbers, figure out where it falls in your thresholds, and mark your hit points. Now that we've talked about thresholds, we can discuss armor. Your armor score, and the shield symbol next to evasion, represents how many armor slots you have available to use. The armor slots are represented by the smaller shields beside your armor score. If you get hit with an attack, you can spend 1 armor slot to reduce the damage by 1 threshold. Severe to major, major to minor, minor to nothing. Now, you can only spend 1 armor slot per incoming damage, so you might not be able to avoid all the damage, but it will help. When it's time for you to attack, how do you know who you can hit? Daggerheart measures most distances by range. These are approximate distances that help to give everybody a sense of where things are in your environment.
Let's talk about the mechanics.
There's melee, if you're using minis, they're touching. Very close, or the short side of a card. Close, or the length of a standard number 2 pencil.
Sorry, I'm distracted by him.
Far, or the length of a piece of paper.
Very cute.
Very far is anything longer than a sheet of paper. And out of range, something that's typically too far away to be targeted. Next, let's talk about the stress mechanic. It represents your character's mental and physical strain. Some spells and abilities will require you to mark a stress to use them, and the GM might inflict stress as a consequence for dangerous actions. If you are ever forced to mark 1 or more stress, but your slots are full, you must mark 1 hit point instead. In a fight, you're almost certainly going to get a little hurt.
So they just said
don't worry,
if you have too
can
much
use
stress,
downtime to recover hit points and stress you may have taken on your journey, so you'll be right as rain for your next encounter. During a short rest, you can swap domain cards into your loadout and then choose 2 options. Tend to wounds, which helps you heal hit points. Clear stress, which removes some of your stress. Repair armor, which gets you back some of your armor slots. Or prepare, which gains you hope.
You have to choose.
A long rest is similar, but instead you can tend to all wounds, clear all stress, repair all armor, prepare, or work on a project. This could be something like deciphering an ancient text or crafting a new weapon. Now, you only get 2 options, whether it's a long or short rest, so choose wisely. We hope this has given you a quick look into the core mechanics for Daggerheart. To learn everything in more detail, go pick up the core rulebook for yourself, or borrow a friend's, or even go learn more at Daggerheart.com. We'll see you next time you gotta get your sheet together.
The Riz is off the charts. I'm definitely interested in checking it out. But, you know, a lot of it's going to come down to the adventures, too. Like, what kind of adventure publication schedule do we have? Because I think something that Paizo figured out, and a big reason for their success, well, obviously they also capitalized on D&D going to 4th edition not being very well received, was that they were able to roll out consistent adventures to run, like all their, you know, Pathfinder Adventure Society and the adventure paths and all this stuff. That I think is a big key for folks like me who enjoy running, you know, RPGs, but have very little interest in trying to put one together from scratch. I'm interested in the game and the collaborative play of that game in a space, and less interested in me like conjuring an entire full developed world thing, I guess. So I'll be curious to see what the support level is for that, and hopefully there is one, and it's not just, hey, here's our rule book, go have fun, because that's the kind of thing that's like, okay, means I'm probably not going to be involved in it as much as I would be. So the Daggerheart core rulebook is $29.99 as the PDF. I don't actually know what the physical one is, but the PDF on Drive-Thru RPG is $29.99, published by Darrington Press. There's a dice and there's a card. It didn't actually go over the card system too much. We went over the dice system, but there is apparently some cards that I don't know if the cards literally just show your abilities on there, or if there is some kind of like you have to draw cards or all that. That would be an interesting system to be far more differentiated from Dungeons and Dragons for sure. Like the level cap for campaigns are shorter. Interesting. I mean, that, you know, that might be the best solution, because I mean, even look at D&D where they technically you can get up to 20, but like all of their like 90% of their adventures, right, are like 1 through 12 or something. So clearly, if everybody knows that the balance just gets out of whack in the higher levels and stuff, then maybe we can just condense that level range or something. There's got to be a better solution. Probably one of my biggest criticisms of 5th edition is how the balance just absolutely gets insane and out of whack once you get up to like tier 3. So the Daggerheart core rulebook, like I said, is also available on Roll20, but it's $34.99 on Roll. But I think, yeah, it's available. Maybe you can buy it in Roll20 actually directly. Purchasing this will unlock the content in your free demiplane.com account instead of unlocking Roll20 account, such as a Roll20 game module or compendium. Daggerheart characters created on Demiplane can be used within the Roll20 VTT to play online. So it's a little bit of a different system here. You'll be asked to link your Demiplane and Roll20 accounts. Access to content including Daggerheart Daggerheart core is included with the Demiplane, Nexus character builder, and sheets. So I wonder if that's an interesting barrier for folks who aren't involved in Demiplane at all and have used Roll20, and they're like, well, I don't want to have to jack around with having to do this other system. That might be just part of the publishing deal they made or something, somehow a deal was made where they're like, we're going to go with Demiplane as our digital distribution. Although you can also, like I said, get it Drive-to-RPG, just a PDF. There's also a bundle that has the PDF and Nexus core bundle. How much is that? One's on Drive-thru RPG as well. Yeah, okay. So this gives you the digital Nexus version and the PDF for $44.98. So all the digital stuff that you could possibly want. I assume if you've got it on the Nexus, you can pull up all the information though, but a lot of people like to have the PDF. Purchasing the Daggerheart core on Daggerheart Nexus unlocks the titles, digital reader and compendium, character builder, and game master tools. Character building and sheets, GM screens and encounter building, cross-drive access. That's all the stuff they mentioned here. So that part's a little bit interesting. I'll have to definitely cover that. As somebody who is very familiar with Roll20 and not very familiar with Demiplane, that's certainly worth covering. And I imagine what might be what a lot of people's perhaps introduction to Demiplane maybe is through their interest in Daggerheart. Let me know if you're interested, and if you're interested in having me cover Daggerheart, or if it is really a pretty niche thing and I'm giving it even too much oxygen. I don't know, but I know Critical Role is pretty damn popular. Darrington Press is certainly their big publishing label, and then Daggerheart, I believe, is their very first completely new, because they've done modules and stuff even for 5e before, obviously with I can't remember the name of it right now, but they did a whole campaign book for 5th edition, Call of the Netherdeep, I want to say. Does that sound right? Which I thought was pretty good. But this is completely new rule set. I don't think it includes any adventure content. If it does, it might just be like a little starter adventure, but it doesn't mention that anywhere in the description. That is the Daggerheart stuff. Oh, here it goes. Core mechanics, 9 domains, 9 classes, 18 ancestries, 9 communities, 189 unique abilities and spells, 279 printable cards, weapons, armor, and lootable tables, over 130 adversaries and 19 environments, so it's kind of just an all-in-one. And tips on how to improvise and build your own 6 campaign frames to build out a personalized journey with your table. That's interesting word choice. 6 campaign frames. And an appendix with all the stuff. Oh, this frog guy looks awesome. I am a sucker for anthropomorphic characters, no doubt. All right, and the very last thing we're going to talk about, speaking of other third-party publishers that release stuff for 5th edition, we've got Kobold Press, who is releasing their Player's Guide 2. They're kind of just going back to, I don't know if 4th edition is, I think 3rd edition did this, though, where they literally named them like something 2, something 3. It was just like a series of books. So many expansion books. For Tales of the Valiant, which is their, I feel like I have to explain this every time, their version of 5th edition that came about after the big OGL scandal, where Kobold Press was kind of the champion of like, oh, we're going to make a big Creative Commons thing that's going to be, opened up and player friendly and all that. And they announced it and they had plans for it. And then Wizards like backpedaled and said, oh no, we're going to do that totally also. But then Kobold Press still went through with all their plans, and they eventually released Tales of the Valiant, I think late last year, which again is basically 5e in all but name, similar to how Pathfinder is, 3.5 edition, basically. So this is I think it's the first like expansion to Tales of the Valiant, and literally called Player's Guide 2, and this one adds 3 new base classes, dozens of subclasses, new lineages, new spells, and more. For that's interesting, for Tales of the Valiant and 5e D&D. So awkwardly, they kind of realize, like, hey, we have to keep supporting 5e directly to get all those sweet sales, while at the same time trying to promote our own system that we want to create for. So they're kind of in an awkward position right now where they want to do both. They're not giving up on Tales of the Valiant. They want to keep that going, but they still need to produce content for 5th edition, especially because 5th edition just got a huge resurgence, based on their D&D 2024 stuff. The first major rule supplement honed to perfection by Kobold Press. Huge leap forward for the Tales of the Valiant RPG gives its 5e based system new downtime rules, expanded strongholds, improved ritual casting, and a range of new subclasses, dozen new lineages, and more than 150 spells and rituals. The Vanguard Martial class, as well as the Witch and the Theurge casting classes offer new paths to adventure. I know Thaumaturge is a thing. I've never seen Theurge. Theurge. Okay. There is a preview PDF, which I have not looked at. This is the thing that I'm least familiar with, which I tacked it on at the end. That's probably worth checking out. This is on Kickstarter, by the way. I should have mentioned that for those of you listening. I'm looking at the Kickstarter thing right now, which is, I believe, already funded, but, they always send these super low goals. 50,000. 50,000 is probably pretty solid for a print run of expansion book. It's already $150,000 US with almost 2,000 backers. Still has a month to go for funding. This is a long one. So right now the tiers include, I assume that's a physical for $50, the digital PDF for $34. Of course, you can include all the original material in there. They've got digital. Ooh, I don't think I see Roll20 in here. That's Foundry. That's Fantasy Grounds. A character journal. A bag of luck. Virtual tabletops. They do not mention Roll20. They say Foundry Shard. I don't know what that one is. Shard? Interesting. And Fantasy Grounds. Additional VTTs to be added later as timelines and partner support allow. Fascinating. They're not involved in Roll20, at least at the moment. This project will ship to backers in January 2026 and arrives at local hobby stores in February. That's pretty solid wait time, I guess. But yeah, I really like Kobold Press's stuff. I am not super familiar with Tales of the Valiant. I probably should be. It honestly just seems really, really similar to 5th edition, frankly, to where a lot of the problem is, and I'm sure they're realizing this, is like, especially with 5th edition being the new 2024 version, like, well, why would I switch now to the Tales of the Valiant, basically? But, I don't know, maybe if there's some cool, well-balanced classes and stuff in there, it might be worth checking out. But that is currently on Kickstarter with a minimum support. Again, the PDF is $29. Obviously, no shipping there. And then the physical version is $50. You can get the physical and PDF for $59. Etc., etc. I guess we could actually watch the video, assuming it doesn't use licensed music, which
in a world where heroes are forged, the power returns to the players. Kobold Press presents Player's Guide 2. More than 250 pages of character-focused options, completely compatible with Tales of the Valiant and 5th edition games. Craft epic warriors with the new Vanguard class, or unleash powerful magic with the reimagined Witch and Theurge classes. Level up your favorite core class with 48 new subclasses, expanded heroic boons, over 150 new spells, and even magical tattoos. Game Masters also have countless new options, ensuring encounters on and off the battlefield will never be the same. Engage your players with expanded downtime rules, customizable base building options, vehicle upgrades, and more. Bring more than luck to your next adventure and become the hero you were always meant to be. Download the free preview PDF and back Player's Guide 2 on Kickstarter today.
Yeah, I do like their art too. I've always liked that Kobold Press art. So yeah, that's on Kickstarter right now, and I think that is going to do it for this week in D&D. Thank you so much for all of you joining me live. As always, thank you so much for all the patrons for helping make these shows happen. Shouts to Platinum patrons Joe, Will, Thomas, Stan, Brennan, Genocider, Roleplay Roll, Christopher, Big Nut, John, Nathan, Andrew, Stephanie, Jason, Lumpy Spuds, Warden, Eudaimonia LLC, Tom, They're Eating the Dogs, Marcus, Snuggie, Hugo, Jerry, Shay, Sasha, and John. And gold patrons RPG Peppercraft, Pretty Boy, and Yuma, Desert Lounge, Jerome, Nathan, Fasicatorta, Scott Ruffus, Jerry Glenn, and Mark. Thank you all very much for your support, and I will see you next time.